Hi, everyone. So nice to see you all today. Now we are going to hear a very special data presentation from LABBN's Delisa Young and Monica Charles called Connecting the Dots, We're All in This Together. Delisa, the manager of data and evaluation at LABBN, earned her master's degree in experimental psychology from California State University, San Bernardino. Her professional background includes working as a research specialist at 5 Acres, a child welfare agency that promotes permanency, safety, and well-being for children and families. Monica, LABBN's senior data analyst, earned her Master of Public Health from the George Washington University. Before joining LABBN, she worked at the Peace Corps Headquarters Office of Health Services on electronic medical record implementation, training, and evaluation and reporting. In her graduate work, she focused on improving health outcomes in underserved populations in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Delisa and Monica will help us connect the dots with data from this past year by sharing network descriptive and outcome data, highlighting key success stories, and sharing stories behind the data, and celebrating our network's home visiting village. So without further ado, please welcome Delisa and Monica to the virtual stage.
Great. Thank you, Laurel, for that introduction. We are going to kick this presentation off with a story from one of our providers.
In the month of January, our site started efforts for returning to in-person home visits. Management spent several months preparing staff and providing support for upcoming changes. Staff was initially anxious and resistant. However, once they started to actually go back into the community in person, staff reported positive experiences and a renewed outlook and appreciation for being able to meet clients face-to-face. In particular, one welcome baby nurse shared that being able to weigh the baby during one of her in-person visits provided a wave of relief for a mother who initially presented with high anxieties and worry about not knowing if her exclusively breastfed baby was getting enough to eat. Having the visit be in person allowed the nurse to weigh the baby on the spot and show the client that her baby had gained several ounces. This reassured mother that baby was getting enough to eat and motivated her to continue to exclusively breastfeed, something that could not be done through a virtual visit. Thank you for sharing this story, Northridge Hospital. Keep up the amazing work. In the month of January,
I love how that story starts with leadership coming up with a plan, implementing it with staff, and in turn, those efforts having a positive impact on clients. So we are going to get into some numbers and share stories throughout the presentation. This year, over 1,400 clients enrolled prenatally. We are lower than previous years. However, keep in mind that the birth rate in Los Angeles County has declined. First 5 LA recently opened up a referral pathway that allows for home visiting agencies to conduct prenatal outreach. We do see an increase in prenatal enrollments for home visiting. We also want to acknowledge a few sites that we identified as having success with prenatal enrollments. Either they have been consistent in their enrollment or have seen a significant increase in enrollments from the previous year. So those sites are Providence Holy Cross, Emanate Health, Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital, Foothill Family Services, Shields for Families, and Wellnest. Next slide. This year, there were nearly 14,000 hospital enrollments, which is great considering the drop in birth rates. We want to acknowledge a few sites that have been successful in hospital enrollments. Of our smaller hospitals, we acknowledge Northridge Hospital. Of our medium hospitals, we acknowledge Emanate Health and Providence Holy Cross. Of our largest hospital, we acknowledge Miller Children's Hospital for enrolling over 2,600 clients. That's 2/3 of the clients approached at the hospital. Next slide. In line with our theme, It Takes a Village and We're All in This Together, we want to acknowledge how the network works together to ensure families are receiving needed services. One of our hospitals was undergoing some transitions and wanted to ensure that client services were not disrupted. The following 3 hospitals were able to help with the bulk of the transition: Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital, Centinela Hospital, and Northridge Hospital. Combined, these hospitals supported over 600 families, ensuring these families were able to continue services. Clearly, you can see we are all in this together. Next slide. Okay. This year, nearly 700 clients enrolled in home visiting. We see an increase in external referrals this year. So these are referrals that did not generate from the Welcome Baby hospitals. And there are a few sites we want to acknowledge who have been successful in postpartum enrollments. These sites either have a high enrollment rate or have significantly increased their enrollments from last year. And those sites are Plaza Community Services, Child Care Resource Centers, Pacific Asian Counseling Centers, Families in Good Health, and The Whole Child. This year, over 55,000 visits have been completed. There's been a lot of focus on resuming in-person visits, which requires a shift for families and staff. So we are hopeful that once the shift settles a bit, that completed visits will increase for the next fiscal year and more to come. So now I will turn it over to Monica.
Thanks, Delisa. So to paint a picture of the families we serve, let's start off by looking at caregivers' age. The average age at entry is 29 years old. The race ethnicity of our client population this fiscal year is pretty consistent with past years. Over 3/4 of caregivers identify as Hispanic Latino, 8% identify as Black or African American, 6% identify as white, 5% identify as Asian, and another 5% identify as another race ethnicity. We also want to highlight the diversity of languages spoken by families who enroll in our programs. The families that our network served this year spoke over 50 different languages. We want to recognize the additional efforts that staff make to ensure that all families receive high quality services. This year, we heard many success stories around culturally competent communication, whether it's through interpretation services, text messaging software, or special printed materials. And now we're going to move into talking about program impact. So we'll start out by discussing caregiver depression screenings. To avoid potential negative impact on caregiver and baby's livelihood, it is so important to identify caregiver depressive symptoms early on. This way they can be linked to mental health services. So to focus in on 2 key screening time points, the chart on the left highlights the percentage of caregivers screened during their prenatal period. And then the chart on the right highlights the percentage of caregivers screened within 3 months of childbirth. And you'll see that our programs consistently do an excellent job with screening for depression during both of these periods. Next slide. So using the Ages and Stages questionnaire, our programs also screen for developmental delays at a high rate, especially when comparing to the state rate. And this emphasis our programs place on these screeners mean that families are more likely to receive the services needed to mitigate potential delays. And the connection to regional center services can often be challenging, so we want to share a success story from Shields Pat. Family's son was not making many sounds or words, and he also did not sit or crawl by himself. The parent educator conducted screenings and found that son scored low, so they partnered with mom to refer the child to the regional center, where he has been receiving services for the past year. More recently, the parent educator followed up, and mom happily reported her son is now walking and talking, and she has even had to baby-proof the entire house due to him walking everywhere. Mom expressed that without the home visiting program, she would have never known there were services out there to assist in the development of her child. And I think this is just such a great example, powerful story of the impact of our programs. Next slide. All right, another outcome to highlight early on in child's life is safe sleeping. Sudden infant death syndrome is a leading cause of death in infants, and a main prevention strategy to reduce the risk of SIDS is to always place baby to sleep on their back. Most SIDS deaths occur between 2 and 4 months of age, so here we focused in on the 2-month time point. So in our programs, home visitors provide families with safe sleeping education to ensure families are aware of the best practice to always put baby to sleep on their back. So on the chart on the left, you'll see that by the time child is 2 months of age, 93% of HFA PAT families and nearly 100% of welcome baby families have received safe sleep education from their home visitor. And then you'll see on the chart on the right, this information sharing is effective. At the 2-month visit, 93% of HFA and PAT families and 98% of welcome baby families stated that they put baby to sleep on their back. And this is particularly impressive when comparing to the LA County rate. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Delisa, who will continue to highlight program impact.
Thank you, Monica. So yes, continuing on with program impact, well child visits are critical. Assessing physical, emotional, and social development is important at every stage of life, particularly with children and adolescents. Well child visits provide an opportunity for providers to influence health and development. For home visiting, we see that of the children who were enrolled for 18 months, 80% of them received the HEDIS recommended number of 6 well child visits. For welcome baby, since the program goes to 9 months, we projected that of the children who received all of the recommended visits by 9 months, that 97% of them would be on track to receiving the 6 well child visits by 18 months. And with Medicaid HMO being most comparable to our clients, we see that both welcome baby and home visiting clients are far more likely to receive the recommended number of well child visits. Next slide. Another critical healthcare visit is the 6-week postpartum visit. Timely and adequate postpartum care can set the stage for the long-term health and well-being of new mothers and their infants. This visit is important for prevention and identifying immediate health risks. Our network is doing an excellent job with supporting families in attending these key visits, outperforming the Medicaid and commercial health plans. Next slide. All right, community referrals. Clients were successfully linked to over 15,000 community referrals this fiscal year. The top referrals across the network include charitable services, lactation support, parent education, support groups, and food needs. Next slide. We have a success story about connecting clients to needed resources. At Shields HFA, a family of 6 children were at risk of needing to move if rent was not paid. The family support specialist supported the family with creating a monthly budget and applying for a rental assistance program. The rental assistance was approved, and this allowed for the 2 past months of rent to be paid off. The family was able to stay in their home. Now that is a win. Next slide. Client goals are a key part of the program. Clients share goals that they would like to complete, and their home visitor works with the client to create a plan to achieve the goals. Over 1,100 goals were completed this year. This word cloud that you see extracts out common keywords related to goals that clients wanted to achieve. So we see development, so related to their children, a school, many want to go back to school, saving money and scheduling, you see, that's around those visits we talked about earlier, and support, and the list goes on. Next slide. So we, as you know, are always excited to share stories about clients, how clients are impacted. So here is a short one from El Nido Family Centers related to clients meeting a goal that they set. So the family set a goal to work on college applications for an older sibling in the family. The home visitor supported the family with the application process. The family called the home visitor to thank them for the support and to share the news that their child was accepted to 7 out of the 9 schools they applied to. This is excellent work. We know that there are many stories like this. Setting goals with families can have a strong impact on families even after they complete the program. So now I will turn it back over to Monica, who's going to close us out.
Thanks, Delisa. All right, so let's look at some program completion trends. So for Welcome Baby graduations this fiscal year are following similar trends as the enrollment and visit count. That being said, there are many sites that we want to recognize for high program completion rates. So from smaller sites, we want to recognize Centinela Hospital. From mid-sized sites, Providence Little Company of Mary, Providence Holy Cross, and Emanate Health. And from larger sites, we want to recognize St. Francis. Next slide. For HFA and PAT, we look at program completion a little differently. So these are long-term programs and retention is a key focus. In HFA and PAT, there are currently over 500 families who have been enrolled for 2 or more years. And then let's also celebrate over 85 HFA and PAT families who completed their long-term programs this year. And we want to highlight 2 great tidbits from graduations this past year. At Lundquist Institute, every graduating child was successfully transitioned to kindergarten. And Antelope Valley Partners for Health hosted their first in-person graduation event since 2018, and its theme was Dr. Seuss's Oh, the Places You'll Go. Next slide. Next, we'll share a couple of results from the Welcome Baby client satisfaction surveys from this past year. To start off, when asked to rank the statement, my home visitor provides information or support in a way that respects my beliefs, clients rated an average of 4.93 out of 5. And second here, when asked to rank the statement, my home visitor helps me build confidence as a parent, clients rated an average of 4.86 out of 5. We shared these during last year's summit as well, and we want to highlight that both of these ratings have improved from last year. Next slide. And last, we want to acknowledge our LABBN teammates who helped put together this presentation. Helen, Catherine, and Charlene, thank you. We couldn't have done it without you all. And then to close it out, we just want to express gratitude to the entire home visiting village for providing services to families, for entering data into the database, and for sharing stories with us so that we could connect the dots and share these successes with you all today. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Huge thank you to Delisa and Monica. There's a lot of words of gratitude coming in through the chat box. All those emojis are going a little crazy. You may have not seen it during your presentation too, but they were also going crazy during the presentation. Big shout out to all the sites for their continued efforts. Thank you for all you're doing. As you can see, it's working. So with that, I'd like to formally pass it on to Amie Miramontes Franco, our communications specialist, for another client video. Amie, please go ahead.
Thank you, Charlene. Good morning, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and continue with our Clients and Cars video series. In this next video, a mother shares one thing she learned while participating in the program. Anna, we're ready for the video whenever you are.
What I learned was like that communication is really important with the child. Like even if you're changing the diaper, you know, communicating, I'm changing your diaper, I'm gonna wipe you. And it's been a very positive relationship with my daughter.